What's going on, everybody? My name is JT Miller, the host here on Vault Talks, and I wanted to jump on here and record an intro episode for you guys to not only learn a little bit about me and what I do, but also what this show's going to entail and ultimately help you guys decide if it's going to be a podcast that's worth your time to listen to or not. So, with that, I'll start off with a little bit of brief background. So, as I mentioned, my name is JT Miller. Born and raised on the west side of Cincinnati, I went to Elder High School and then on to Thomas More to play college basketball. Only played over there for 2 years and decided to hang it up. I love the sport, but I've always been an entrepreneur and I really wanted to just explore other ventures and see what I was capable of. So, a good friend of mine and myself, we started our own landscaping business and that was going great. We were booked, we were busy, we were getting paid. But what we started to realize was we'd do a job, we'd get paid, and then a piece of equipment would break or our truck would break down. And we had good cash flow on paper, but we were never getting to keep any of it. And that led me down the rabbit hole of, exploring other options out there for business owners and for entrepreneurs. Ultimately, a close family friend of mine named Mike Schwally introduced me to the infinite banking concept. That was really where my passion for it started. I was seeing firsthand that as a business owner, there's only two options to pay for anything in your business. You can pay with cash or you can finance something. And when you finance something, it's really easy to see what the interest cost was. It shows up on your statement. You know exactly what that piece of equipment cost you. The problem is that when you pay cash, most people view it as there was not a cost. I had $100,000. I bought a piece of equipment for 50. I still have 50 grand, right? There was no cost. But what they fail to realize is that that 100 grand you had is now never going to earn for you again. There's opportunity cost there. So Mike Schwally helped me dive into the concept, and that's really where I've built my practice at this point. I'm out in Mason, Ohio. Our firm is called Fortegic, and I've really established myself as the infinite banking specialist out here in our office. So it's been pretty cool. There's not a lot of people out there that do what we do. The best way I can describe the concept is that it is a process and it is not a product. The process is to take over the banking function in your life. And that's exactly what I just touched on with, that piece of equipment, whether you're paying cash or whether you're financing, there's a cost either way. Banks, they don't keep our money on hand. If I go walk into the bank and I deposit 10 grand, they're probably only keeping about 1,000 of that in the bank. The other 9,000 gets loaned out and they pay me, pennies of interest, maybe 0.5%, and they go charge Joe Smith down the road 10% on his auto loan. And that's the whole idea is we want to take over that banking function in our lives. The wealthy people in this country have been doing it for decades. You hear stories about the Rockefellers, Ray Kroc, Walt Disney. A lot of their wealth resided in permanent life insurance. Now, infinite banking is, you hear life insurance. It's a little bit different because traditionally, if you go to your insurance agent and you try to get a life insurance policy, they're going to ask you what amount of death benefit you want. And then they're going to go to the company and they're going to say, hey, such and such wants 500,000 of death benefit. What's that going to cost them? And it's a cost. That's what it is. You're paying a premium in hopes of never having to cash in on it until way down the road. Now, with infinite banking, it's cool because what we do is we reverse engineer things. So we go to the insurance company and we say, hey, this client wants to dump $100,000 into one of these policies. They'd like to pay for the least amount of death benefit, and they'd also like to maximize the cash value. The cool part is we're not doing this so that we can have a lot of life insurance, right? We're doing it because we want the attributes that come with it. So some of those are it's liquid, it's guaranteed to grow, and a really big one is the growth is tax free. So when we need liquidity, what we're going to do is we're going to take a loan, we're not going to take a withdrawal. And as most of you guys probably know, loans are not taxable. At the end of the day, this is not meant to be an investment. What is the difference between investments and savings? Savings are guaranteed, they're liquid, and usually they're earmarked for a future purchase. So you're saving up for vacation or you're saving up for a car. Whatever the case is, you just need to make sure that that money is guaranteed and liquid when you need it. On the flip side, an investment is something that ultimately takes on risk. We're willing to take risk in hopes of chasing those high rates of return. Now, whether that investment is in the stock market, real estate, private equity, whatever the case is, there's risk there. And the cool part is, what I like to educate people on is the infinite banking concept. It's not an or decision. It's not, oh, I can put my money in this policy or I can put it in the stock market. It's an and conversation because an investment, before you make that investment, the dollars have to reside somewhere. A good example is if you're going to go buy a real estate property to flip, you have to come up with some money. You have to have excess savings in order to do that investment. So, what we want to do is just have a great vehicle for those savings dollars to reside until they're needed. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to take a policy loan when we need liquidity. What that means is, let's say we got 50 grand in one of these policies and we need 25 to go buy a new car. Well, we're going to borrow against our 50, which means we're not interrupting the compounding. So our 50,000 is earning 4.5 tax-free return, and we're going to borrow against it and take 25 grand out. Now you do pay interest on these loans, but you're paying less than you're earning. And another cool part is, you're the bank. You're the one paying the interest back to yourself. So you really don't care when it gets repaid, how long it takes, or really if ever. Because the cool thing with these policies are, let's say you never repaid that policy loan. Well, what happens is your death benefit is ultimately going to pay it off once you're gone. At the end of the day, I don't want to waterboard you guys on this stuff in this very first episode. It's just, I'm passionate about it and sometimes it's hard to cut me off. But yeah, just wanted to jump on here, tell you guys a little bit about me, a little bit about what I do. And last, what I haven't mentioned yet is what's going to be going on this podcast. Well, what I'm going to do is bring on a lot of my current clients, friends, people I've met through my career, and let them tell you about their upbringing, what they've built, how they built it, maybe some challenges they've faced. So this is going to be set up mostly like a Q&A session. I'm going to bring on some pretty successful people that I think you guys would enjoy hearing from, and I'm really just going to sit them down and grill them. So if you guys have questions that you want answered, feel free to shoot me those. It'll be a mix between doing those type of interviews as well as doing some solo episodes where I'll dive into some of these concepts more in the weeds. I'll talk about tax strategy and real estate investing. Those will probably be solo episodes. I'm going to try to keep the guest speakers more of a Q&A type session. But there you have it. You know a little bit about me, you know what I do, and you know what this podcast is going to be all about. I hope to see you guys tuned in on the next one. And again, I'm JT Miller, and this is Vault Talks.